The stars looked the same as they always did. But Captain Jiho Kim knew that everything was about to change. He stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel Taeguk Dawn, watching the view screen display the endless darkness of space. His crew worked quietly at their stations, unaware of what was coming. Jiho was 45 years old, with gray streaks in his black hair and lines around his eyes from years of squinting at star charts. He had fought in Earth's wars before humanity reached the stars. He knew what it meant to fight for survival. The ship's communication system suddenly crackled to life. Ensign Jisoo Han looked up from her station, her young face confused. "Captain, we're receiving a priority transmission. It's coming from the Galactic Council." "Put it through," Jiho said. The view screen changed. Instead of stars, it now showed an enormous creature that looked like a massive insect standing upright. Its voice was cold and mechanical as it spoke through the translator. "Attention all species of the Galactic Council. This is Speaker Vrentok. A new order has been established for the good of all civilizations." Commander Heejin Park stepped closer to the captain. She was a sharp woman with intelligent eyes who had served with Jiho for 10 years. "This doesn't sound good," she whispered. The insect creature continued speaking. "The Council has approved the hierarchical protocols. These new rules will ensure proper order in the galaxy. All species must accept their correct position in the natural structure of civilization." Jiho felt a cold weight in his stomach. Humanity, as the newest species to join the Council, will have certain restrictions. Your territory will be limited to your current systems. Your military forces will be reduced by 70%. Your technology development will require Council approval. You have 72 hours to formally accept these terms. The screen went dark. For a moment, nobody on the bridge spoke. Then Lieutenant Minho Choi, the young navigation officer, broke the silence. "Sir, did they just tell us to give up everything we've built?" "Yes," Jiho said quietly. "That's exactly what they did." Heijin pulled up data on her console. "Captain, if we reduce our military by 70%, we won't be able to defend our colonies. And if we need permission for new technology, we'll never advance." Dr. Sumin Lee entered the bridge from the science lab. She was a calm woman who usually stayed out of military matters. But her face was pale. "I've been analyzing the hierarchical protocols they just sent. Captain, these rules would essentially make us servants. We would have no real independence." Jisoo's hands shook as she worked her console. "Sir, I'm getting messages from Earth. Command wants us to return immediately to Council space. They want you to represent humanity at the formal acceptance ceremony." Jiho sat down in his captain's chair. The weight of the decision ahead pressed down on him like a physical thing. How long to reach Council Station? 48 hours at maximum speed, Minho answered. "Set the course," Jiho ordered. As the ship turned toward Council space, Jiho called a meeting in the briefing room. His senior officers gathered around the table. Ambassador Yuna Kang was also there. She was an older woman with tired eyes who had spent years trying to build relationships with other species. "We all heard the message," Jiho began. "I want honest opinions. What do we do?" Ambassador Yuna spoke first. "Captain, I understand how this feels, but we must be realistic. Humanity has been part of the Council for only 12 years. We are one species against hundreds. If we refuse, they will destroy us." "With respect, Ambassador," Heejin said, "if we accept, we destroy ourselves anyway, just slower." Chief Engineer Daeho Song leaned forward. He was a practical man who usually avoided politics. But now he looked angry. "I didn't spend 20 years building our fleet so we could hand it over to aliens who think we're inferior. It's not about what we want," Yuna argued. "It's about survival." Dr. Suman pulled up information on her tablet. "I've been researching the Council's history. This isn't the first time they've done this. 6 other species received similar demands over the past 1,000 years. "What happened to them?" Jiho asked. "They all accepted the terms," Suman said quietly. And within 300 years, none of them existed as independent cultures anymore. They were absorbed, forgotten. The room fell silent. Young Minho looked at his captain. "Sir, my grandfather fought in the Unification Wars. He always said that freedom isn't something you can put aside temporarily. Once you give it up, you never get it back." Jiho thought about his own brother, who had died during humanity's first encounters in space. They had been attacked by pirates that, he later learned, were secretly supported by council species who didn't want humanity expanding too quickly. "Ambassador Yuna," Jiho said carefully, "I respect your experience, but I need to know something. If we accept these protocols, do you truly believe humanity will survive?" Yuna was quiet for a long moment. Finally, she shook her head. "No, I don't. But if we refuse, billions of people might die in the war that follows. And if we accept," Heijin said, "billions of people will live as slaves. Their children and grandchildren will forget what it means to be human." Jiho stood up and walked to the window. Outside, stars streaked past as the ship traveled through space. "We have 48 hours before we reach Council Station. I want everyone to think carefully about this. Because whatever decision we make will affect every human being alive, and all the ones not yet born." As the meeting ended and the officers left, Jiho remained alone in the briefing room. He thought about Earth, about the billions of people who were waiting to hear what would happen. He thought about the wars humanity had fought to unite under one government, to reach the stars, to take their place among other civilizations. And he thought about what it meant to be free. The Taeguk Dawn continued through space, carrying its crew toward a decision that would change the galaxy forever. 20 hours into their journey, Captain Jiho Kim couldn't sleep. He walked through the quiet corridors of the Taeguk Dawn, listening to the hum of the engines. Most of the crew was resting, preparing for what lay ahead. He found Dr. Sumin Lee in the science lab, surrounded by screens filled with data. She looked up as he entered. "Can't sleep either, Captain?" "No," Jiho admitted. He sat down across from her. "What are you working on?" Sumin gestured at the screens. "I'm analyzing what happened to those 6 species I mentioned, the ones who accepted terms like ours." She pulled up images of strange creatures. Some beautiful, some frightening. This was the Kelvin race. They were artists and musicians. Their culture was famous across the galaxy. What happened to them? The Council gave them restrictions similar to what they're giving us. Limited territory, controlled technology, reduced military. The Kelvin accepted because they were peaceful. They thought cooperation was the answer. Sumin's voice grew sad. Within 200 years, their language was extinct. Their art was forgotten. The last pure Kelvin died 300 years ago. Now their descendants are just workers on council worlds, and they don't even remember what they lost. Jiho felt sick. And the others? Same story, different details. The council identifies species that are becoming too strong or too independent. They create these protocols to limit them. The species that refuse are destroyed by force. The species that accept are destroyed by time. "So we lose either way," Jiho said. Sumin looked at him directly. "Maybe. But there's a difference between dying on your feet and dying on your knees. At least if we fight as humans. Our children will remember that we tried." Jiho left the lab and continued walking. He found himself in the ship's small observation deck. Through the transparent panels, he could see the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, home to 10 billion people who were depending on him to make the right choice. The door opened behind him. Commander Heijin Park entered. "I had a feeling I'd find you here." "Can't stop thinking about it," Jiho said. Heijin stood beside him. "I've been running tactical simulations. If the Council decides to enforce these protocols by force, Earth's fleet could hold them off for maybe 3 weeks. We'd lose, but we'd make it expensive for them. 3 weeks isn't long enough to matter." "No," Heijin agreed. "But here's something interesting. I've been monitoring communication channels. Other species are watching us very closely. Some of the minor species, the ones who don't have much power in the council, they're paying attention to what humanity does. Why? Because they're in the same position we are. The council dominates them too. If humanity stands up and survives, it might inspire them to do the same. Jiho hadn't thought of that. And if we stand up and get destroyed, then they'll know for certain that resistance is impossible. Heejin paused. But at least we'll have tried. The next morning, Ensign Jisuhan discovered something important. She came to the bridge with her tablet, excitement and fear mixed on her young face. Captain, I found something in the Council's communication protocols. They've been jamming certain signals. What kind of signals? Jiho asked. Transmissions between minor species worlds. They're preventing them from communicating freely with each other. Jisoo pulled up data. And there's more. I managed to establish a back-channel network. 4 different species have sent us private messages. Saying what? Jisoo read from her screen. They're all similar. They say things like, "We're watching, and we hope you choose wisely, and we're ready to support you if you stand." Heijin looked at the captain. They're waiting to see what we do. If we resist, we won't be alone. Ambassador Yuna arrived on the bridge. She had been speaking with Earth Command. Captain, I have orders from the President. She says the decision is yours to make. Earth will support whatever you choose. That's a heavy burden to place on one person, Jiho said. Yes, Yuna agreed. But you're the one who will face the council. You're the one who will speak for all of us. So, the choice should be yours. Chief Engineer Daeho came to the bridge with his own report. Captain, I've been analyzing the council station's defenses. They have a lot of warships around it. But I noticed something. The crews of those warships are mixed species, not all of them like the council leadership. What are you thinking? Jiho asked. I'm thinking that if it comes to fighting, some of those ships might not fight. Some of those crews might refuse orders to attack humans. Lieutenant Minho interrupted. Captain, we're receiving another transmission. This one is private. Encrypted. It's from someone called Counselor Talon. I know that name, Ambassador Yuna said. Talon is one of the council members, a crystalline species, very old, very wise. They rarely speak, but they're respected. Put it through, Jiho ordered. The screen showed a being that looked like it was made of living glass, with light moving through its transparent body. Its voice was like wind chimes. Captain Jiho Kim of Earth. I am Talon. I cannot speak openly. But I wanted you to know something. The hierarchical protocols are not about order. They are about fear. Fear of what? Jiho asked. Fear of you. Fear of humanity. You have grown so fast, advanced so quickly. In 12 years, you have done what takes most species a century. The old powers of the Council are afraid that you will challenge their control, so they seek to limit you now, before you become too strong. If that's true, why don't you oppose these protocols? Because I am one voice among hundreds. But know this, Captain. Whatever you decide, history will remember. And not all of us agree with what is being done to your people. The transmission ended. Jiho sat in his chair, thinking. Everything was becoming clear now. This wasn't about order or structure. It was about power. The old species wanted to keep their control, and they saw humanity as a threat. Dr. Suman's words echoed in his mind. There's a difference between dying on your feet and dying on your knees. That night, Jiho gathered his officers one more time. I've made my decision, he said. But before I tell you, I want each of you to know that you can request transfer. Whatever happens at Council Station, it might be dangerous. I won't order anyone to face that if they don't want to. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke about leaving. All right then, Jiho said. He looked at each of them. These people who had become his family over years in space. When we reach Council Station, I'm going to reject the protocols. I'm going to tell them that humanity will not submit. Ambassador Yuna closed her eyes. They'll call it an act of war. Maybe, Jiho said. But it's an act of principle. And that matters more. The Taeguk Dawn continued toward Council Station. Its crew knew that in 24 hours, everything would change. They didn't know if they would survive what was coming, but they knew they would face it together, as free people making their own choice. That was enough. The Council Station appeared like a massive ring of metal and light, spinning slowly around a neutron star. It was enormous, big enough to hold representatives from every species in the galaxy. The Taeguk Dawn looked like a small toy beside it. Captain Jiho Kim stood on the bridge, watching the station grow larger on the view screen. Around it, dozens of warships floated in formation. Their weapons were powered down. But the message was clear. The Council was ready for trouble. "We're being hailed," Ensign Jisoo Han reported. "Council Station requests permission to guide us to our docking port." "Grant it," Jiho said. The ship moved slowly through the fleet of warships. Lieutenant Minho Choi watched his navigation console nervously. "Sir, I count 47 military vessels out there. Most of them are bigger than anything Earth has." "I see them," Jiho said calmly. Inside, his heart was pounding, but he kept his face still. A captain couldn't show fear. Commander Heejin Park stood beside him. "The good news is that those ships are from different species. Look at the designs. At least 15 different types. They're not unified." "That might matter," Jiho agreed. "Or it might not." The Taeguk Dawn docked at a port designated for smaller vessels. As the airlock connected, Ambassador Yuna came to the bridge. She wore formal clothes now, representing Earth. "Captain, we have 6 hours before the Council Assembly begins. What do you want to do?" "I want to walk around," Jiho said. "I want to see this place." "Is that wise?" Yuna asked. "You're about to reject their demands. They might try to arrest you." "Then let them try," Jiho said. "But I won't hide in my ship like I'm ashamed." He took Commander Heijin and Dr. Sumin with him. The three of them walked through the station's corridors. The place was incredible. Beings of every shape and size moved through the halls. Some walked, some floated, some crawled. The air smelled strange, like metal and flowers mixed together. They passed a group of tall, thin beings with too many arms. One of them stared at Jiho. "Human," it said in a clicking voice. "Everyone is talking about you. They say you will defy the council." Jiho didn't answer. He kept walking. They found a viewing platform that looked out at the stars. Jiho stood there, thinking. Somewhere out there was Earth, the small blue world where humanity was born. So many people, so many lives, all depending on what he would say in a few hours. A voice spoke behind him. Jiho turned. Standing there was Counselor Talon, the crystalline being who had sent him the private message. Up close, Talon looked like a sculpture made of living light. Beautiful and ancient. "Counselor," Jiho said respectfully. "I wanted to speak with you before the assembly," Talon said. Its voice still sounded like wind chimes. "I wanted to warn you. Speaker Vrentok is very certain you will submit. He believes all species eventually bow to power." "What do you believe?" Jiho asked. "I believe that the council has grown corrupt. We were once an organization of equals, helping each other reach the stars. Now we are an empire, crushing anyone who threatens our control." Talon's light pulsed sadly. "I have watched 6 species disappear because they were too weak to fight and too proud to stay strong after submitting. I do not want to watch a 7th. "Then help us," Jiho said. "I cannot. I am one voice. But I can tell you this. You are not as alone as you think. Many species are tired of the Council's rules. They wait for someone to stand first." Talon left without another word. Back on the ship, Chief Engineer Daeho had been busy. He found Jiho in the captain's quarters. "Sir, I need to show you something." He pulled up technical data. The Council Station's communication arrays are incredibly powerful. They can broadcast to the entire galaxy at once. "So?" Jiho asked. "So when you speak at the assembly, everyone will hear it. Not just the council members in the room. Every species, every world, everyone with a receiver. It's automatic. They broadcast all major council sessions." Jiho felt something click in his mind. "Everyone will hear." "Yes, sir." This changed things. Jiho wasn't just speaking to the council. He was speaking to the entire galaxy. Every oppressed species, every world that resented the council's control. They would all hear his words. Meanwhile, Ensign Jisoo had been working on her back-channel communications. She came to Jiho with news. "Captain, I've been in contact with representatives from 4 different species. They're all minor powers, not important in the council. They want to meet with you." "When?" "Now, if possible. Before the assembly." Jiho met them in a small conference room. There were 4 beings, each from a different species. One looked like a floating jellyfish. Another was covered in fur. The third had scales like a reptile. The fourth was humanoid but with blue skin. The scaled being spoke first. "Captain Kim, we wanted you to know that you have our support, whatever you decide." "Why?" Jiho asked. "You don't know us," the blue-skinned being answered. "Because the council treats us the same way they want to treat you. They take our resources, limit our growth, keep us weak. We are tired of it. If I defy them," Jiho said carefully, "there might be war. Are you ready for that?" The furry being made a sound like laughter. "War is already here. It's just been one-sided for a long time. Maybe it's time to make it fair." War quote. After they left, Heejin pulled Jiho aside. "Sir, do you realize what's happening? This isn't just about humanity anymore. This could be the start of something bigger." "I know," Jiho said. "That's what scares me." He received one more visitor before the assembly. Admiral Kyungmin Baek appeared on a secure video channel from Earth's defensive fleet. The admiral was an older man with hard eyes and gray hair. "Captain Kim," the admiral said, "I wanted you to know that Earth's fleet is ready. Whatever happens at that council, we stand behind you." "Thank you, Admiral." "Jiho," the admiral said, using his first name. "They want you to make a decision that could save billions or kill billions. But I want you to remember something. Our ancestors left Earth to find freedom in the stars. If we give up that freedom now, what was the point?" "Oh," the admiral's image disappeared. Jiho looked at the time. 1 hour until the assembly. He put on his formal uniform, the one with Earth's symbol on the shoulder. He looked at himself in the mirror. Just a man, 45 years old, about to speak words that would echo across the galaxy. Commander Heijin came to his door. "It's time, Captain." "I know." He took a deep breath. "Heijin, if this goes badly, if they try to arrest me or the ship gets attacked, I want you to take command. Get the crew home." "Sir." "That's an order, Commander." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "Yes, Captain." Jiho walked through the station toward the Grand Council chamber. Other beings moved aside as he passed. Some looked at him with respect, others with contempt, some with hope. He reached the huge doors of the chamber. They opened slowly, revealing an enormous room filled with thousands of representatives from hundreds of species. At the center was a raised platform. Above it, Speaker Vrentok waited, his insect face unreadable. Captain Jiho Kim walked forward, alone, carrying the hopes and fears of humanity on his shoulders. The doors closed behind him, with a sound like thunder. The assembly had begun. The Grand Council chamber was the largest room Captain Jiho Kim had ever seen. It rose up like a mountain, with seats arranged in circular tiers that reached toward a domed ceiling. Thousands of beings sat in those seats, representing every species in the galaxy. At the bottom, in the least honored section, sat the small human delegation. Ambassador Yuna was there, her face pale but determined. At the center of the chamber was a raised platform. That was where Jiho stood now, alone. Above him, on the highest tier, Speaker Vrentok looked down with his insect eyes. Captain Jiho Kim of Earth. Vrentok's voice boomed through the chamber. You stand before the Galactic Council to answer a simple question. Does humanity accept the hierarchical protocols? Or does it reject the wisdom of this ancient body? Jiho looked around the chamber. So many eyes watching him. So many beings who had lived under the Council's rule for centuries. He saw hope in some faces, contempt in others, and fear in many. He thought about his crew on the Taeguk Dawn, watching this broadcast. He thought about Earth, about the billions of people who would live with whatever decision he made today. He thought about his brother, who died fighting for humanity's freedom to travel the stars. Before I answer, Jiho said, his voice calm and clear, I would like to understand what we are accepting or rejecting. Speaker Vrentok, may I ask some questions? Vrentok's mandibles clicked with annoyance. Very well. These hierarchical protocols limit humanity's territory to our current systems. Can you explain why? Because younger species must not expand too quickly. It creates instability. I see, Jiho said. And the requirement that we reduce our military by 70%. What is the reason for that? I see. Excessive military force from minor species threatens the peace. And the rule that all our technology development must be approved by the Council? To ensure that dangerous technologies are not created by species who lack the wisdom to use them properly. Vrentok leaned forward. These questions are pointless, Captain. The protocols exist for the good of all. Do you accept them or not? Jiho was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke again, but this time his voice was different, stronger. Speaker Vrentok, you say these rules are for our own good, but I have studied the history of this council. 6 other species were given similar protocols over the past 1,000 years. Do you know what happened to them? They accepted the wisdom of the council and prospered within their proper place. No, Jiho said. They disappeared. Their cultures were erased. Their languages were forgotten. Their people were absorbed into other species until nothing remained of what they once were. He looked around the chamber. Is that prosperity? Is that wisdom? A murmur ran through the assembled beings. Some looked uncomfortable. Vrentok's voice grew sharp. You speak of things you do not understand. Those species were weak. They could not maintain their identity. That is not the Council's fault, isn't it? Jiho asked. When you take away a species' ability to grow, to defend themselves, to create their own technology, how can they stay strong? You create the conditions for their destruction, then blame them for being destroyed. Enough, Vrentok shouted. I did not call you here for a debate. Give your answer. Does humanity accept the protocols? Or not? Jiho looked up at the speaker. I have an answer. But first, I want everyone listening to understand what is really happening here. He turned slowly, addressing not just the council, but the cameras that broadcast his words across the galaxy. The council says, these protocols are about order, about safety, about wisdom, but I have learned something during my journey here. These protocols are about fear. The old powers of this council are afraid of change. They are afraid of species who grow too fast, who think differently, who might challenge their control. The chamber erupted in noise. Some beings shouted in anger. Others remained silent. Listening, Jiho continued. Humanity did not travel to the stars to kneel before another empire. We fought wars on our own world to free ourselves from tyranny. We united our entire species under the simple idea that every human being deserves freedom and dignity. We will not abandon that idea just because the tyrant has a different face now. You dare call this council tyrannical? Vrentok demanded. I dare speak the truth, Jiho said. You have given us an impossible choice. Submit and die slowly, or resist and die quickly. But there is a third option that you have not considered. And what is that? We refuse to die at all. Jiho's voice rang through the chamber. The Galactic Council has ordered humanity to obey. But we do not recognize your authority to give such orders. Obedience without consent is not order. It is oppression. And humanity rejects it. The chamber exploded with noise. Some beings stood and shouted. Others sat in shocked silence. Jiho raised his voice above the chaos. I want to speak to the species who are watching this broadcast. The ones who have been silent for so long. The ones who have accepted the Council's rules because they thought they had no choice. He paused. You have a choice. You have always had a choice. And humanity offers you an alliance, not of masters and servants, not of strong and weak, but of equals, of free people standing together. This is rebellion, Vrentok shouted. You will be punished for this. Perhaps, Jiho said calmly. But if punishment comes, let history remember that humanity chose to stand rather than kneel. We are not asking for your permission to be free. We are informing you that we already are. You can accept this reality, or you can fight it, but you cannot change it. 8. Before Vrentok could respond, something unexpected happened. A being stood up in one of the lower tiers. It was one of the species Jiho had met earlier, the one with blue skin. Speaker Vrentok, I have something to say. Sit down, Vrentok ordered. No, the being said. I will not sit down. Captain Kim speaks truth. This council has oppressed my people for 300 years. We accept his offer of alliance. We stand with humanity. Another being stood. Then another. Then 10 more. Then 50. Representatives from minor species across the galaxy rose to their feet. Some spoke words of support. Others simply stood in silent solidarity. Jiho watched in amazement. He had hoped to inspire a few. He had not expected this. Ambassador Yuna stood as well, tears running down her face. Humanity stands for freedom, she said. Not just for ourselves, but for all people. That is our answer to the council. Vrentok tried to restore order, but the chamber was in chaos now. Beings were shouting, arguing, some trying to leave. The ancient structure of the council was cracking before their eyes. Then Councillor Talon stood. The crystalline being's light pulsed brightly, and somehow, the chamber grew quieter. Speaker Vrentok, Talon said in that wind chime voice. I have been a member of this council for 800 years. I have watched us change from a community of cooperation into an empire of control. Captain Kim is right. We have become what we once opposed. Talon, you cannot support this rebellion. I can, and I do. Talon turned to face the entire chamber. The hierarchical protocols are unjust. I vote against them, and I propose that we reform this council to give equal voice to all species, not just the ancient ones. More councillors stood. Not many, but enough to matter. The vote that Vrentok had thought would be simple was now impossible. Vrentok's insect face twisted with rage. This session is ended. Captain Kim, you are under arrest for inciting rebellion. But before guards could move, Councillor Talon stepped forward. By council law, any member accused during an assembly cannot be arrested until the session is formally concluded. And I do not recognize the conclusion of this session. Other councillors agreed. The legal argument paralyzed the guards. Jiho used the moment to speak one last time. To every species listening, you now know the truth. The council fears change because change threatens their power. But change is coming whether they accept it or not. Stand with us. Stand for freedom. Stand for your right to determine your own future. He walked out of the chamber, his head held high. No one stopped him. The first week after Captain Jiho Kim's speech was chaos. The broadcast had reached every corner of the galaxy, and the reactions were explosive. Some species declared their support for humanity immediately. Others condemned the speech as dangerous rebellion. But most importantly, beings everywhere were talking, questioning, thinking about things they had accepted without question for centuries. Jiho stood on the bridge of the Taeguk Dawn, which remained docked at Council Station. He had expected to be forced to leave, or arrested, or attacked. Instead, something strange happened. Nothing. The Council seemed paralyzed, unable to decide what to do. "Sir, we're receiving another message," Ensign Jisuhan reported. "It's from a species called the Telon. They're asking to join the alliance you mentioned." "How many does that make?" Jiho asked. Commander Heejin Park checked her list. 23 species have formally requested to join. 40 more have sent messages of support. And we're getting reports that several Council military ships have had crew desertions. Dr. Suman Lee looked up from her science station. "Captain, I've been monitoring social communication across the galaxy. Your speech is being shared everywhere. Some beings are calling it the most important moment in galactic history. Some are calling it the start of a war." Ambassador Yuna added quietly. She had returned to the ship after the assembly. "Earth Command is preparing for the worst." Jiho nodded. "The Council has to respond eventually. We've challenged their authority. They can't let that stand." But days passed, and the expected attack never came. Instead, something else happened. The Council began to fracture from within. Councillor Talon visited the Taeguk Dawn in secret. The crystalline being sat in the briefing room with Jiho and his officers. "The Council is in turmoil," Talon explained. "Speaker Vrentok wants to send the fleet to Earth, to make an example of humanity. But he cannot get the votes he needs." "Why not?" Jiho asked. "Because the crews of those ships are not unified. We discovered that 17 of the 47 warships stationed here have refused to follow attack orders. Their crews include members of minor species who support your message. And some of the major species are uncertain. They fear that attacking humanity will trigger a larger revolt." "Rumb." Heijin leaned forward. "So, we've created a stalemate." "More than that," Talon said. "You have created possibility. For the first time in centuries, real change is possible." Over the following weeks, representatives from the supporting species began arriving at Council Station. They met in secret at first, then more openly. They called themselves the Free Species Alliance. They drafted a new charter, one based on equality and mutual respect rather than hierarchy and control. Chief Engineer Daeho worked with engineers from other species to create compatible communication and transport systems. It was difficult because every species had different technology, but they made progress. "We're building connections," Daeho told Jiho. "Not just political ones. Real ones. Trade routes, cultural exchanges, joint research projects." Lieutenant Minho helped establish new navigation networks that would allow the Alliance species to travel and trade freely. "It's like we're creating a new civilization," he said, with wonder. But the Council Old Guard was not ready to surrender. Speaker Vrentok made one final attempt to assert control. He gathered the Loyalist species and sent an ultimatum to the Free Species Alliance. Submit to Council authority within 10 days, or face military action. Jiho received the message on the bridge. "We're stronger than we were a month ago," Heejin said. "But we still can't win a direct military confrontation." "We don't need to win militarily," Dr. Suman said. "We've already won philosophically. The galaxy has seen that resistance is possible." Ambassador Yuna had a different perspective. "I've been speaking with moderate council members. Many of them are tired of Vrentok's extremism. If we respond carefully, we might split them further." Jiho thought for a long moment. Then he made his decision. Open a channel to Speaker Vrentok. Public broadcast. When the channel opened, Jiho spoke calmly. "Speaker Vrentok, I have received your ultimatum. Here is my response. The Free Species Alliance will not submit to the old council structure. However, we do not seek war. We seek reform. We invite the council to negotiate a new agreement, one that gives equal representation to all species. You are in no position to make demands, Vrentok shouted. I am making an offer, not a demand, Jiho said. You have 10 warships that will follow your orders. We have the support of 73 species and the sympathy of many more. If you choose war, you will lose. Not because we are stronger, but because your own people will refuse to fight for a cause they no longer believe in. Vrentok ended the transmission angrily. But Jiho's words had an effect. Over the next few days, more council members began to openly question Vrentok's leadership. Councillor Talon organized a vote of no confidence. It was close, but Vrentok lost. A new council speaker was chosen, one who was willing to negotiate. The talks were difficult and took months. But slowly, a new structure emerged. The Galactic Council was reformed. Every species, large or small, old or new, received equal voting rights. The hierarchical protocols were abolished. Independent species were guaranteed the right to self-determination. It wasn't perfect. Some of the old powers resented the changes. Some species chose to leave the council entirely rather than accept equality with younger races. But for the first time in galactic history, the council represented true cooperation rather than domination. 6 months after his speech, Captain Jiho Kim stood on the bridge of the Taeguk Dawn, preparing to depart Council Station. His ship had been there throughout the negotiations, a symbol of humanity's resolve. Now it was time to return to their mission of exploration. Admiral Kyungmin Baek had offered Jiho a promotion. Earth wants to make you an admiral, the message had said. You've earned it. But Jiho had declined. I'm a ship captain, he had replied. That's what I'm good at. Let someone else be the admiral. Instead, Commander Heijin accepted a position as humanity's military liaison to the new alliance. Lieutenant Minho became head of the alliance's navigation division. Dr. Suman started a cultural preservation program to help species maintain their unique identities. Ambassador Yuna became the alliance's chief diplomat. Chief Engineer Daeho chose to stay with the Taeguk Dawn. Someone has to keep this ship running, he said with a smile. Besides, you'd get lost without me. A new crew joined Jiho for the next mission. But before they left, Ensign Jisoo brought one final message to the bridge. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from a species we've never contacted before. They're very far away, beyond the normal council space. What do they want? Jiho asked. Jisoo smiled. They say they heard your speech. They've been living under the rule of a local empire that oppresses them. They want to know if the Free Species Alliance will help them too. Jiho looked at the stars on the view screen. The galaxy was so much bigger than he had ever imagined, full of people who needed hope, who needed someone to stand up first and show them that freedom was possible. Send them a reply, Jiho said. Tell them we're coming. Tell them they're not alone. The Taeguk Dawn undocked from Council Station. Beside it, ships from a dozen different species prepared to travel together. They were exploring a new region of space, not as conquerors or subjects, but as allies and friends. As the fleet jumped to hyperspace, Jiho thought about everything that had happened. One speech, one moment of standing up for principle, had changed the entire galaxy, not through force, but through inspiration. Not by defeating the Council, but by showing others that resistance was possible. He thought about the beings on that distant world, waiting for help to arrive. He thought about all the other species out there who were still oppressed, still afraid, still waiting for someone to show them the way. The galaxy was big. There was a lot of work to do, but humanity had shown that change was possible. And that was enough to start with. The Taeguk Dawn and its allied fleet disappeared into the stars, carrying the message of freedom to every corner of the galaxy. Behind them, the reformed Galactic Council began the slow work of building a better future. Ahead of them, countless worlds waited to hear that they too could be free. Captain Jiho Kim smiled. This was what humanity had come to the stars for. Not to conquer, not to submit, but to stand beside other free people and say, "We are here. We are free. And we will help you be free too." The quiet that had followed his speech was not the quiet of defeat. It was the quiet before a new age began. And now, that age was here.